You should not be worrying about paying medical bills. You should not be worrying about anything else. You should be focusing on getting better and letting your attorney handle the other parts. And if you have an attorney that is doing that the other way, you got the wrong attorney.
I'm attorney Dave Craig, managing partner and one of the founders of the law firm of Craig, Kelley Faultless. I've represented people who have been seriously injured or who have had a family member killed in a semi or other big truck wreck for over 30 years. Following the wreck, their lives are chaos. Often they don't even know enough about the process to ask the right questions. It is my goal to empower you by providing you with the information you need to protect yourself and your family. In each and every episode, I will interview top experts and professionals that are involved in truck wreck cases. This is After the Crash. I'm here today with Robyn Pardekooper. Robyn is kind of a unique guest in that Robyn was a prior client of mine. And I thought that it would be enlightening for those folks out there listening to listen to a client's perspective. And Robyn was kind enough to agree to do this. Robyn, thank you very much for being a guest on our podcast.
No problem.
So Robyn, I think as a client, you went through the whole process. You had the misfortune of being in a really bad wreck. Where you got severely injured. So you had to go through the healing process and the rehab process. On top of that, you had to go through the litigation process all the way through trial. And so you're not here today to talk about dollars or numbers or those type of things, but we're here to talk about what the process is like. And I can't think of a better person than you because you went through the whole thing. So I guess let's start off with just the initial trauma was horrific. I mean, you were injured, you hurt your leg very badly, and just kind of walk us through the challenges of a physical injury on top of the litigation process, just kind of in general.
Okay. Well, I fractured my left femur. So I was actually initially in the accident. I was hit by a car, actually. And then I was in ICU for a week. And then I was a single mom. I had 3 small kids. So my oldest, I think at the time was 6 or 7. And then my youngest, I believe, was 3 or 4. So you can imagine it was pretty hard. I couldn't go straight home after that because I wasn't able to take care of myself, let alone 3 small kids. So after I got released, I was using a walker. So I went home to my parents because I needed 24-hour care. And other than going to a rehab center where I wouldn't be able to see my kids at all, that was the best thing for me. That way my parents could, still watch my kids. I could still see them. It would keep my spirits up.
And I think that, I remember because I met you at your parents' house when I first met you. Mm-hmm. And you had rods through your leg. Yeah. And immobilizer, it was very bad, very, like you said, you could have easily gone into a rehab facility where they would have kept you and taken care of you, but you wanted to be with your kids. You wanted to see your kids some, and you wanted to be with your parents. But I can remember, it wasn't like, that your family was ready for anything. These things are unpredictable. You don't expect them. You don't plan for them. So all of a sudden, one day your life is going down this one path. And then the next day, you're faced with this.
Right. I was very independent. My parents lived on the opposite side of town that I lived on, and my ex-husband. So that wasn't easy to try, for him to try to get the kids to my parents back and forth. So that was, there were difficulties there because I couldn't drive. I couldn't help. my parents weren't retired, so they were still working, but trying to help. There's a lot of things, that are going through your head at the time, other than just trying to get better. You have kids, you have, you're scared about the financial aspect. You still have bills to pay. And I didn't have a spouse. I didn't have a second income. So there was a lot of other things that are going through your head, other than who am I going to get for an attorney? That was like the last thing that was on my mind. I was just worried about seeing my kids, honestly, and just trying to focus on, okay, how can I start walking again so I can move and help my parents to, help with my kids. Because as a mom, that's the hardest thing, not being able to take care of your kids.
I think that's true with the clients that I've signed up. I've been doing this for over 35 years. And one of the things that, surprises people is that nobody ever really hires me necessarily because of the money. Nobody ever wants to make the phone call to hire an attorney. People are just worried about how are they going to take care of the bills. Like in your case, there's you had a lot of bills. How are you going to, you're not working, you're not able to do that, not able to take your kids. You don't know at that point early on, how long is it going to take you to get better? Are you going to get better? And so at some point, usually people around you recommend my clients get an attorney. But, that's not why people call. People don't call because they want a bunch of money. They call because they're scared, they're worried, and they need help taking care of the things that they've lost.
Right. I honestly didn't even know where to start. Hiring an attorney was so foreign to me. I would have never thought that in my life I would have to hire an attorney. In fact, when my ex-husband and I got a divorce, we just did things, we just agreed upon everything. And so we didn't have to hire attorneys for that. We were very civil with each other. So I hadn't had an attorney in my life before that. So I didn't know where to start. And I looked out that someone recommended you to me. So that helped. And because it hadn't even crossed my mind, that I need an attorney. And because like I said, I was just focused on my kids and where I was going to go and how soon I could get back home and, to be closer to their dad and, get them back into their bedrooms and for them to be, in their surroundings.
Let's talk about, when you hire an attorney. I'm very fortunate that I got the chance to represent you. But, other people are in the same boat you were in. They don't know and they've never thought about it. What do you think is important in picking a law firm, an attorney? But, obviously there's a lot of people that work on a case. And you spend a lot of time with them because it doesn't happen, like it's not done within a week.
Right. Right.
So what do you think is important? If people are out there and they're listening to this and they're considering hiring a lawyer, what type of things do you think are important for them to think about?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So this one's huge. This one's really important. There were a couple of things. First, I was in the accident. I was a passenger. And so first I had met with an attorney who was the driver. It was his attorney, and I had met his attorney first, but I had to go with him to his office. And it didn't feel right to me because I was struggling. I was on a walker and I was struggling to get into his office, and he didn't have an elevator and he didn't come down to see me. And I was struggling to get on the stairs, and I'm thinking, this guy should be coming to me. He knows the shape I'm in, and he's not coming downstairs to even meet me. And so I thought, this doesn't sit right with me. And so I told him, I left and I said, I need to think about this. And then a friend recommended you, and I thought, okay, let me call. So when I called you, the first thing you said, I didn't have to ask. You said, let me come to you. There's no reason you should have to leave that house or try to find somebody to drive to my office. And that was the number one sign that made a big impact for me, because the other guy wasn't trying to help me at all. And you came to my parents' house, and you didn't try to make me come to the door or anything. You came to the couch. You didn't, you just came to me, sat down, made everybody feel comfortable. And that was a huge impact. And I was ready to sign papers right away just because of that, because you felt like family right away. You didn't judge anything. You didn't judge all the kids' stuff laying around, because there's no way I could clean up anything. I couldn't move all the medical stuff that was in the way. And immediately I just felt like family. And so after that, as the, after, because we were involved for years, because it goes on and on, but you have to meet with family of mine, of friends of mine, past coworkers of mine. And every single one of them said the same thing. Oh, there's candy in his office and he's so nice. And I just felt really comfortable. And I think that's huge, because I think if they are going to feel uncomfortable going already to an attorney's office, I want to make my family and friends know that, hey, he's a really nice guy and he's going to make you feel at home. Go in there and just know that he's going to be wearing a sweatshirt or a hoodie, and it's not going to be what you think. He's just going to talk to you like your family. And I think that that is huge, because people are scared of attorneys. So that's the first thing. Like, make sure that it's somebody that you want to sit down with, that you could feel comfortable on a weekend, like, sitting next to at a soccer game, or, hanging out with, at a, bonfire. If they're not somebody that you would want to sit next to, you probably shouldn't hire them.
I think that's great advice. I mean, I wrote a book called Semi-Truck Wrecks, a guide for the victims and their families. And one of the things I suggest in there is interview the lawyers. I mean, go to, if you have a couple, narrow it down to a couple, and then go meet them, because you are going to spend so much time with them and their staff. And if they're not the right fit for you, then that's if your gut doesn't feel right, then don't hire that person. Interview somebody else. Any lawyer should be willing to sit down and be interviewed and talk to the clients for nothing, and not make them feel obligated to sign up or whatever. I mean, and if a lawyer's pushing too hard, then that's probably the wrong lawyer as well. You need to feel comfortable, because like you said, we were in this for years together. And I've had other clients tell me that. I actually had one client who was really, really severely injured. He was in a wheelchair. I mean, not unlike you, but he had, his whole body was demolished and smashed up. And another law firm, kind of a prominent lawyer, said, I'll send a limo over to your house and pick you up and bring you to my office. And they called me as well, and I didn't know that. And I said, I'll come to your house, because it's got to be painful for you to move.
Yes.
And hard. And so, wow. And his house was over an hour, almost 2 hours away from my office. But, he's like, well, you're willing to come here? And I said, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine if it was my own son or my wife, I would never make them go do that. And I wouldn't treat anybody any differently. I wouldn't treat a stranger different than my own family. And that's why they hired me. They interviewed the other lawyer. But they were, the other lawyer thought that it was very impressive to go send a limousine to pick them up. And the people thought it was horrible. It was just a horrible idea. And I think that tells you a lot. I mean, in this business, in a personal injury business, and wrongful death lawyers and personal injury lawyers, we have to be compassionate. We have to care about people. Not everybody does. There's, like anything else, there's good and bad. You did the right thing. Your gut told you in the very beginning, okay, well, maybe this isn't the right thing for me. And I would encourage anybody listening to this that you interview the lawyers and talk to them and find out and ask them questions and don't be afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, there are going to be times during this process that you are going to call and you are going to be crying on the phone to this person. And you want to know that they are, like you said, compassionate, that they're not going to say, hey, I don't have time for this, or, what's the problem with your case? You want to know that this is a person that cares about you, that says, you're going to be okay and let's talk about it, because it's a very emotional process, and there are ups and there are downs, and there are a lot more downs than ups. And you really have to know that that person cares about your well-being and, can help you get through this, because your family can only do so much, but they don't really know what you are going through. They only know the physical part, but they don't understand what going through trial is like, or what going through, mediation is like. They don't understand it. So sometimes the only person you can cry to is your attorney, or, the staff, whoever answers the phone. I know I cried to sometimes it's the receptionist or whatever, and I'm sure that they were like, oh, here's Robyn again, but it was always fine. And everyone, I know that the paralegal sometimes cried with me, and it was so comforting because they understood, they knew what I was going through, and they were so kind and caring. And I always felt like everybody was family and willing to help and offer suggestions. And I mean, like I said, your family is not going to know exactly what you are going through.
I think that, in this case, in your case, and like most of my cases that I handle, where my clients are severely injured, that it's tough because they have to deal with the pain and the finances and the scary. Am I going to get better? Am I going to be able to take care of my kids? Am I going to, how's this going to affect me down the road, and all those things? Plus, then they have to deal with a law firm, and they have to deal with the litigation. And then in cases like yours, which is not uncommon, it's even worse because the person who causes the injury never apologized at the scene and never came over to even see. I mean, you had a horrendous injury that was visible, and it was obviously noticeable that you were hurt really bad. And this person never even came over to see if they could help or if they could do it. And unfortunately, that's not that uncommon. And then you get in the litigation process, and the lawyers that are hired oftentimes don't make it any better. The lawyers on the other side, instead of accepting responsibility on behalf of their client, a lot of times they fight and try to make the victim, the person that's under attack. And I would imagine, and that's not just your case, but that's most of my cases. And that's got to make this whole process even worse.
Yeah. When I went through mediation, I was not expecting that, but the other guy's attorney was not nice. I expected attorneys to be similar to you, and that was not what I got. And so that was really tough. And I would say that is a huge reason, not the only reason, but that might be a big reason why I decided to go to trial. Because I thought, I'm not going to make this easy on them. I am going to ride this out, and I've suffered and I've went through this whole thing, and I'm tough. I can do this, and I'm going to make them, because I knew that they didn't want to go to trial because it's time, it's money, I knew he didn't want to put his client through it. But I thought, I don't care to waste their time and money because they didn't care about me at all. And they made that very clear. So I would say that, I knew that I could do hard things. I had done hard things for the last couple of years. And that was another, that was the final step of me, for myself, of saying, you can do this, and you're going to do this to say, take that, and I think that was a huge final push for me, I guess.
And I think that's true. And a lot of clients tell me that. I mean, a lot of clients tell me, that if they had apologized in the very beginning, if they accept responsibility in the very beginning, if they say they're sorry, and can they help make it right? A lot of times they could get off paying less, because they don't, because my clients are human beings as well, and they care. And if somebody feels sorry or feels badly about what they've done, I mean, I teach my kids, if we're all going to make mistakes, but when I was raising my kids, I said, you're going to make mistakes. But when you do make them, you say you're sorry, and then you offer to try to fix it in the best that you can. And that's all we can do. I mean, as human beings. But instead, the defense doesn't do that. A lot of times, sometimes there are some out there who do, but most of them don't. And so instead of saying, I'm sorry, how do I make it right? Let me help you. They attack. Yeah. And that's just extraordinarily frustrating. And I do think that it ultimately costs them more money, because the clients get upset.
Well, and it was clear that there's no way that I could have any guilt. I was a passenger. Right. So there was nothing to even say about me, because I was a passenger. There's no way I could be guilty of anything. And they still tried to, pull up everything they could about me and my past and, everything. And so that was a huge, what are you doing? You're attacking the wrong person. I am just an innocent passenger. And so, like I said, that was a huge reason of, there's no reason for me not to go to trial.
And I think one of the other things when we talk about picking an attorney is that, I'm of the opinion that it's your case, and my job is to give you advice and help you through the process, but it's not to boss you around or to tell you what to do. And so my clients, I always tell them, I'm not going to force you to go to trial, but I'm also not going to force you to settle. It's your choice. I am here to help you and do whatever you want. Unfortunately, there are some lawyers out there who try to force their clients to settle rather than go to trial. And so one of the other things that I would encourage people to ask when they're interviewing the lawyers is, how often do they go to trial? Because if somebody's never going to trial, or they're not going to trial in a case like yours, then you may want to at least consider that as when you're picking a lawyer. Because I go to trial, my firm goes to trial, but I also settle. I will do what my clients ask me to do. My job is just to give you my advice. It's like my doctor. My doctor tells me I should quit eating hot dogs and drinking beer as much. And that's my doctor's job. I don't get mad at my doctor for telling me that, but I make the decision, and I keep eating hot dogs and drinking beer. Right. So, and I think that you want a lawyer who respects your opinion. And when you decided, I'm going to go to trial, then that's what we did. Yeah. We went to trial. Right. And it's like, I tell my kids, I make suggestions, you make decisions. Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. It's just like raising teenagers. Yep. You try to tell them, but they're going to do what they want to do. And it's kind of like that. I didn't know when I was, meeting with you, I didn't know to ask those questions, because like I said, I had never done this before. But you're right. There are important things that you should know and that I don't think people are aware of. And that was one of them that I was very naive to, that I wouldn't have known. I got lucky that a friend suggested you, and I did luck out, because I'm so thankful that I didn't get an attorney that was like, oh no, I've never done trial, or, I don't want to do it, because you never steered away from it. You just said, these are our options. What do you want to do? And I think it's hard because, like in your case, they offered a bunch of, a lot of times they'll offer more money. They won't settle at mediation, then they offer a lot more money right before trial. But at that point, some lawyers will say, okay, well, no, now you need to take it. With us, it was more of, okay, what do you want me to do? If you want me to tell your story, then let's go tell your story.
Yeah.
And you chose, let's go tell the story. And I think that was extraordinarily brave of you. A lot of people are afraid to go in front of a jury, but you're tough. You were tough when you got this injury. You were tough before you got this injury. But you always impressed me with your resilience and your strength, and your independence. And I would encourage people who are listening to this to be brave, to listen, but go with your heart, and do what you want to do.
I will say that most people are tough and brave. They just don't think that they are, but they are, because before my divorce, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was probably not the same person that you even knew, because I was a timid stay-at-home mom, but I was kind of forced to be a little bit more independent. And then my accident happened, and I thought, I got to get better. My kids are active. They're young, and I'm a mom. I got to do this. I got to fight. I got to, go out there. And so I think everyone has it in them. So for anybody watching this, if you think that you don't have it, or you're not brave enough, you're wrong. You do. Everyone has this in them, that you just have to have the courage to go through with it. No matter, if mediation seems scary, and it is, you can do it. Even doing this podcast, I was scared. I was nervous. I mean, I told you before we started, I'm nervous. The whole time leading up to this whole past week, I've been, I'm nervous. I'm nervous to talk about it. I'm nervous about, because anytime you bring up something from the past, it's scary. But you can do it. You can do hard things. You can get past it. And so, anybody watching this, you can do it. You're brave, and, fight for what you think is the right choice. What is the best thing for you, and if that is, taking the settlement and not doing trial, then okay. But if you think that you should go to trial, do it. And it's okay. It's okay if they try to, say whatever about you or whatever, go up on trial, say your piece. It's okay, because, 95% of whatever is said or done is going to be forgotten about. And the people that love you will love you no matter what is said about you. You walk through those doors, and then you walk out with the same people that loved you just the same. And so it really doesn't matter. Go in there, say your piece, and, you will feel better that you did it, because the people that love you and care about you are still going to be there.
And I think jurors are not idiots. Jurors are ordinary people like the rest of us, and they listen to this, and they listen to what's important. And if your lawyer is experienced and knows how to try cases, then, they're going to hopefully be able to turn that on the other side. And, and again, in your case, they never accepted responsibility. They never said they were sorry. And, at the end of the trial, I raised that and brought that to the jury's attention, is that, why we're here is because these people refused to accept responsibility even through the trial process. They still never said they were sorry, and they still attacked. And the jury got it and gave us a lot more than they even offered at mediation. But I believe jurors are like that. I believe jurors try to do the right thing. And if you go in and tell your story like you did, it doesn't really matter all the other stuff that has nothing to do with you or your injury or the case. The jury, they're not dumb. They understand that.
Yeah. I mean, even after my case was done, I was outside of the courthouse, and I had quite a few of them that came up to me, and they asked questions, which was really nice, because there's some things that don't get brought up, and they had things to ask me. They were so curious about, this or that. And I thought that was neat, and I was happy to answer things, but they're just ordinary people. I mean, their moms, their dads, they're normal people that were interested in the process. and really just want to help out the good guy. So, I thought it was really neat to watch the whole thing from the beginning, to see how, the jury is picked, to watch your attorney and see when I thought, oh, we should keep them, and you guys decided, no, we're not going to pick them. And, to see, you guys obviously know what you're doing more than me, but it was interesting to watch. So, I mean, if you think that you might want to do it, it is a neat process to watch. So, I honestly don't regret doing it, even though it wasn't an easy thing.
What in the whole process, I mean, I guess, what was what are the harder things that folks need to know about? I mean, I assume the deposition and the mediation, but, obviously what you're going through physically and mentally, but, from the lawsuit standpoint for you, what were the biggest challenges?
The trial, just leading up to the trial, was pretty emotional because I was not prepared for court dates to get pushed back over and over. And, because I didn't know anything about it. And I think mine got pushed back 3 or 4 times, and they don't get rescheduled for months at a time typically. So mine was pushed back enough where it was probably a good year and a half, from the first one to the actual final one. So that was one thing, where you think you're going to go to trial and then you think again. And so you mentally start preparing and then it doesn't happen. And then, so that I think was hard. And when it finally, did come about, it's just nerve-wracking. I mean, that was the first time I had ever even saw the guy that hit me. Because when the accident happened, I landed far from the scene and he never came over. So I never saw him, during the whole thing. I never had laid eyes on him. So that was pretty emotional. There were some witnesses that went up there, and there were things that, even though I was conscious, which is pretty amazing, I was conscious, but you kind of don't remember some things about, like, I think there was a lady up there that said that I screamed, and I remember crying, pretty hard during the trial. And I don't know why that upset me, but that's hard when you're getting very emotional and there's a courtroom full of people and jurors. And so I guess that part is kind of hard, the actual trial part, because you are rehashing some pretty deep emotions that you've kind of put aside, because you've been if you're doing this right, you are focusing on just getting better, and you're not really thinking about, the accident or whatever happened over and over. And so I had kind of pushed back a lot of memories because I was so focused on, okay, I got this surgery and I got rehab, and I've got to do this and this, and I'm raising kids, and I was doing all these things to get better. And I really hadn't thought about the accident. So when that trial came, there was a lot of emotions that got rehashed, and it was in front of a lot of people. So I would say that was huge. And having to, watch my mom and my sister and all of them hear it and them crying. And that was kind of hard because, I hadn't told them some details, because you don't want to upset, your loved ones. You don't want, they're already watching enough to see you go through surgeries and recovery and all that. So to talk about the details was like a whole nother thing that you hadn't really discussed. So just to be prepared about your family seeing pictures, because pictures get blown up, and details. There's a lot of things, a lot of emotions in the trial.
I think that, a lot of times clients tell me that they're a little hesitant they don't want to bother family, and have them testify and have the lawyers, deal with that. And, in your case, I mean, you had a wonderful support group. You're a wonderful person. So you had a lot of friends. You had a lot of people who wanted to come talk about you and how tough you are and what you went through. And, I find that with most clients that, there are people who want to come help, and it's not inconvenient. They don't mind it at all. They're happy to come into the courtroom, and they're nervous just like you are, but they wanted to make sure that the jury understands the full story. And so your family and your friends and your people who knew you and knew what you went through were key witnesses, just like they are in so many cases. But they were happy to be there to help support you. And that's true with everybody. They shouldn't feel guilty about having their family help, because like I know you would have gone to help any of them if they needed it. And they're always happy to help you.
Yeah, it's true. It's just, when you're on the sidelines, it's hard because for so long you don't want to burden them anymore. And then you feel like you are, I don't know, there's a lot of emotional things that come out, and, but you shouldn't feel bad because your family is there and they want to be there, and they want to see it go through because they know that you fought for so long. So, you shouldn't feel bad, because I know that my mom wanted to be there. My mom she wanted to see the man too that hit me, not because she had anything to say to him, but she needed closure just like I did. She needed to, she was just as invested as I was. She's a mom, so she needed closure the same way. If I would have just settled, I don't think my mom would have had that closure. She was still driving by the accident scene. She was still dealing with some emotional stuff that I hadn't even realized, because I was so focused on me that we hadn't even talked about what my mom was going through.
I know, I can't remember, I don't know which family member or whether it was somebody else, but during my closing arguments, the only time I've ever had somebody say amen out loud in front of the.
It was my mom, yeah.
I think the judge gabbled, but because my job was to make sure that the jury understood the harm that had been caused and what you all had been through. And it was a lot. And again, you were brave to do that. And I'm hoping that other people who are listening to this can get the strength to make up their mind on their own. The lawyer should be there as a guide. The lawyer should be there to help and assist. But really, it's the client's decision on what to do. One last thing I remembered on your case, it just dawned on me, was that in your case, the insurance company lied, and I won't say who it is, but they lied about how much insurance there was in the very beginning. And they said there was only a certain amount of money, which would not have been enough to even pay your bills, probably, or very little. And they lied. And it wasn't until we got further into filed a lawsuit and did discovery that we found out that this guy had a umbrella, an excess policy, a large excess policy. And, I worry about how many folks, again, if they go to the wrong lawyer that doesn't know to look into these things, that they could settle for that low amount thinking they got all the money, when in fact, and maybe they said they didn't lie. They said that when they looked in the computer, they didn't see it. But the reality is that you just wonder how often that happens. And I think that, I would encourage people to, again, pick a lawyer, not only who you interview, who you're comfortable with, but somebody that has some experience, somebody who has been through this before and knows what to look for, because the difference in your case would have been catastrophic if a lawyer would have taken the first limits. And I actually think the lawyer who represented the other person involved in that wreck thought that was all there was. They had told me. And so again, I think you would probably agree. I think finding somebody who you can relate to, somebody who's empathetic and who has a staff behind them that's caring and that's there, that answers your phone and talks to you whenever you need it, but also somebody who's knowledgeable, who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think their attorney missed a couple of major things, because he wasn't knowledgeable about a few things that his client was was doing. He was an older gentleman, and not the attorney, but the guy that hit me. And he was covering for some things. And, I don't think he wanted to see his client go through trial, which is unfortunate as you age, but, you're still responsible when you hit someone. You're still, that's why you have insurance. And I still had medical bills to pay. I still had permanent injuries. I still have them. So, that's why you carry insurance. And so he had a responsibility in representing his client to know the laws and to know what his client was responsible for. So I don't think he did, his part in some things.
Is there anything else that you can think of that, having gone through this whole process, that, you would think that people out there who are just starting the process, who have been injured and are scared and hurting, anything else you think they should know that we haven't talked about?
I don't think so. I mean, other than just, I'm not this like crazy brave person. I mean, I am, but everyone has this in them. I wish everyone knew that you are capable of doing the therapy, that if they tell you to do this, you are capable of doing it. You're capable of going home and doing it. Because so many times people would say, well, it's such a miracle that you recovered the way you did. Yes, I fought for it, but so can you, and so can everyone. It took a lot of hard work, but I'm not this it's not like I had some degree in exercise, therapy. I don't have any kind of healing powers or anything like that. I didn't have money going into this where I was able to afford, crazy doctors or anything like that. I had the same resources as anyone else, probably less because I was a single mom and I had no money. So, you can do this, and you are brave, and you can totally go through trial. It is an emotional process. But everyone is able to do this if you want to do it.
I know you worked really hard at getting better. And I think that, that's one of the challenges when you're hurt badly. Some days I'm sure you felt like, I don't want to go through this. It hurts when I go through this. But I will say that you and the clients that I know that do get better, that get as good as they can get, they still have limitations and issues, but it's not easy. You had to work hard to get as good as you got.
Right.
And I would encourage everybody, just like you did, is that, don't give up, fight through the pain, do the best that you can to get better. And then fight, let your lawyer do the fighting for you in the courtroom. But you worry about it, working hard to get better. And
if you do it the right way, you hire a really good attorney like you, and you're able to listen to what they say. And one of the first things you told me is, you worry about getting better and let me do the rest. And I honestly did that. I worried about getting better. And then when I would get a bill, I had to send it away. I had so when they sent numbers to me, I had no idea what those numbers meant, because I didn't know what my medical bills were, as it should be, because I wasn't adding up any kind of amounts. I was focused on getting better. I listened to your words. So if you're doing this right and you have a good attorney, that is exactly what you should be doing. You should be focusing on getting better and letting your attorney handle the other parts. And if you have an attorney that is doing that the other way, you've got the wrong attorney, because you should not be worrying about paying medical bills. You should not be worrying about anything else. I put those medical bills in a stack, and whenever I saw you, it was like, here you go. I don't want to see them, because I'm worried about getting better. And that was my only focus. And that is exactly how it should have went. And, you know, that's why I was able to not have a ton of stress. Not to say it's stress-free, but it was a whole lot less because I had a good attorney.
Well, Robyn, thank you so much. And on behalf of everybody out there listening, you know, I appreciate your insights and you're brave to be brave just to come on this podcast. And so hopefully it wasn't as bad as you thought it was. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is David Craig, and you've been listening to After the Crash. If you'd like more information about me or my law firm, please go to our website, ckflaw.com. Or if you'd like to talk to me, you can call 1-800-ASK-DAVID. If you would like a guide on what to do after a truck wreck, then pick up my book, Semi-Truck Wreck, a guide for victims and their families, which is available on Amazon, or you can download it for free on our website, ckflaw.com.